Hello, I'm Father Chuck Coleman, pastor of St. Austin's Parish in wonderful Austin, Texas. It's my privilege to introduce to you the following video produced by the St. Austin Parish Vocations Committee. I hope that you will enjoy it. More than that, I hope that you will find the following true stories of God's call inspiring and even challenging. Our parish has been blessed with wonderful priests and women religious, the Dominican sisters who taught in our school, the Daughters of Charity, and priests like Dave O'Brien, Bob Scott, Jim Wiesner, and Stephen Bell. Because we have been so blessed, we have a special obligation to foster and nourish vocations. All vocations, but especially vocations to the religious life, to the diaconate, and to the priesthood. God issues the call to serve the church in this way, but we as a parish must also do our part to encourage, nourish, and foster vocations. So I ask you to please pray daily for vocations and enjoy the video.
It was a struggle for me. It wasn't necessarily anything that I naturally aspired to. But what happened to me is that I found a number of people around me, a number of people close to me, a number of people that I respected asking me if I had thought about the diaconate. And I never really had, and I resisted it for quite some time. But finally I gave in and decided to explore it and wound up being ordained to the diaconate. I kept asking myself if I was being called. And when it became obvious to me was the Wednesday before my ordination, when I was praying morning prayer. And there was an antiphon that comes from Psalm 57, and it says, "My heart is ready, O Lord, my heart is ready." And as I read those words, I just felt swelling up within me this incredible warmth that I knew was God's hand wrapping around me and telling me that I was ready. And it's at that moment that I knew that I was being called to the diaconate. And my response was, "Yes, oh God, my heart is ready." The process is a 5-year process. The first year is primarily a year of discernment. You go to some classes, you go to interviews, you go to more classes, you go to more interviews, you go through a psychological exam, you go through more interviews. The program itself is about 4 years long, and that's 4 years of academic as well as pastoral studies. There are different aspects of the formation. There's the academic aspect. So you go through a number of classes that range from theology to biblical studies to pastoral studies. It just covers a very broad category. And then also in your formation, you'll undertake actual pastoral activities. And that's when you work very closely at your parish with the pastor, becoming familiar with the different activities that you may be called on to perform once you're ordained. You'd go through an actual internship during your formation where you're given specific activities that you're asked to undertake under the supervision of your pastor or maybe another deacon, again to help you become more familiar and comfortable with the different sacraments that you may administer once you're ordained. You go through an annual evaluation throughout the entire process, and again they look at your academic studies. They consult with your formation team as well as your pastor, because as you progress in the program you work more and more with your pastor. And so based on the culmination of all the information that they would receive, the bishop would make the decision for folks to continue. The decision to enter into discernment and then into the program itself was one where I was quite frankly very reluctant, because I didn't in myself recognize the call. But there were all of these other people who were telling me that they thought I was being called. And the best advice that I received was from my spiritual director, and she encouraged me just to be open to the process. So that was the commitment that I made, that I would be open during the process. But I knew deep within my heart of hearts that at any moment I was going to be told by my formation director or someone else that they just didn't feel that the calling was there. I literally went through my entire formation process knowing that at any moment I was not going to continue in the process. As a matter of fact, Myra and I would laugh because you do an annual interview with a panel of deacons, and it seems like after every one of those interviews I would come home and the first thing I'd say to Myra is, "I'm out." But then year after year I would get that same letter from the bishop, like you to continue in formation. So I knew that something was happening, but it was just hard for me to pinpoint for myself what that was until that moment. That moment when I read Psalm 57 and I knew that my calling was being confirmed. The church is very good about including the wives in the formation process. They're invited, although not required, to attend all of the classes. My wife attended some, not all of them. And they also afford the deacon candidates and their wives ample time to go on retreat together. A man may apply for the diaconate and not be accepted, or that he may be in the program and at some point in time in the program be discerned out, isn't a negative reflection on that man. Doesn't mean that he's done anything wrong. It doesn't mean that he's bad. It doesn't mean that he's not faithful enough. But there are so many factors that the church looks at when they are looking for those men to serve in the diaconate or in the priesthood, or even if it's women to religious life or men to religious life. There are so many factors that they take into consideration that the church will always, for example, put the family first. And if they think that it's going to be too burdensome on a family or whatever, they may tell a guy, you know, we just don't think this is right for you right now. So, for example, there were guys in my class who were discerned out, but they are back in the program now. So whatever it was they encountered at that time, that's been resolved, and they've been in the program. My day job fits very nicely in with the diaconate. It really affords me the opportunity to express my ministry in the fullest manner, since what we do in the workplace really ties so closely to what I would do as a deacon, carrying out those concepts of Catholic social justice. In essence, to give shelter to the homeless, to give water to the thirsty, to give food to the hungry, to give clothes to the naked. Deacons are ordained to the service of the bishop. Deacons take a vow of obedience to the bishop and to the bishop's successors. So deacons aren't necessarily ordained to a religious order, but at the same time, they may serve in parishes where the pastors are from a particular religious order. I've always served with pastors from religious orders as opposed to diocesan priests. As part of the vow of obedience that a deacon takes to the bishop, that's to serve where the bishop deems the need is greatest. Now, the church does understand that deacons have, again, their day job or their secular job. Unless they're working specifically for a parish or the diocese itself, deacons don't receive a salary. So deacons have to have that day job, and of course the bishop and the church takes that into consideration when he asks a deacon to serve in a particular area. Bishop Joe wouldn't ask me to serve at a parish in Waco unless Bishop Joe was willing to bear the cost of moving me and supporting me and my wife while we were there. Do you have to give up much to be a deacon? Definitely one of the things that I've given up is what you might call free time. But I think that the time I'm now spending is spent in a much better way. I can recall just very recently a particular weekend I had, and it started on Friday with a wedding rehearsal, then going to spend time with the family at the rehearsal dinner. The following Saturday morning, went to the pastoral center to take part in a continuing education program. The wedding was then that night, the wedding reception afterward. On Sunday, I preached at the 7:30 and the 9:30 Masses here at St. Austin. In essence, that was a very busy weekend, but I can also tell you that I don't think that I've ever felt more content. You know, with a grin on our face, we say that deacons marry, bury, preach, and teach. So essentially what that means is deacons are ordained to administer the sacrament of baptism. They can witness marriages. They can preside at funerals. Also, deacons are given faculties to proclaim the gospel during Mass, as well as preach homilies with their pastor's approval. I've got to believe that there are men here at St. Austin's who are being called to this ministry, because this parish is just too alive, it's too vibrant, there are too many things going on here for there not to be men who are being called to this ministry. One of the things that all of us have to remember is that vocations come from families. Every priest, every deacon, every religious man and woman is someone's son, someone's daughter, someone's brother, someone's sister, someone's aunt, someone's uncle. So families are one of the most important parts in a healthy recruitment process for vocations. I can see that they take a great sense of joy in telling others, this is my brother Billy, the deacon. And my response was, yes, oh God, my heart is ready.